for most. The one exception, northwest Scotland, where there will be some thicker cloud and outbreaks of rain returning. But despite the clear skies elsewhere, actually it's a warmer night, I think, particularly in the south, 14 to 16 Celsius by dawn tomorrow. Nevertheless, with that area of high pressure building across the country, tomorrow morning looks glorious across much of the UK. Sunny skies away from the far north of Scotland, where there will still be some cloud and outbreaks of rain, particularly during the morning. That pushes into the Northern Isles by the afternoon. And with the increased sunshine, it will be warmer. Low 20s widely, 22 for Belfast, 27 for Cardiff, 25 for London. Even higher temperatures are expected during Sunday and more especially Monday and Tuesday. Widespread sunny skies, but the kinds of temperatures we rarely, if ever, experience in the UK.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Oh, a very good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christie's, on your TV, radio and online. I am with you all the way through until midday with a show that is jam-packed full of all of today's biggest stories, lots of chat as well, expert guests, all of your opinions. We've got loads of stories, OK? So there's the Tory psychodrama as the Tories rip themselves apart, rip themselves asunder. Who's your money on? The knives are out for almost absolutely everybody. Do you think they'll come to regret ditching Boris Johnson? We're also going to be talking about what's going on in the Channel. 14,000 people now have made that illegal crossing into the UK. None of them have been deported, as far as we can tell. Absolutely shocking stuff. And we've even got some stuff, ladies and gentlemen, about UFOs. That's right. What's not to like, OK? Make sure that you get in touch with your views, as usual. GBviews at gbnews.uk. We'll be getting to those throughout the show. But first, it's time for your latest headlines.
Patrick, thank you. It's 2 minutes past 10. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The remaining 5 candidates will go head-to-head tonight in the first of 3 live televised debates. Suella Braverman has given her support to Liz Truss as the next Tory leader after being knocked out of the leadership race yesterday. The Attorney-General says the Foreign Secretary is the candidate to unleash the opportunities of Brexit. Former Chancellor Rishi Sunak won the most votes, with Trade Minister Penny Mordaunt coming in second. Conservative MP Richard Holden told GB News he's backing Rishi Sunak.
I think Rishi is by far the best person positioned to win seats like mine, take that fight to Labour at the next general election, because I can see that coalition, Labour and the Lib Dems, propped up by the SNP. I don't want to see our country broken apart. And Rishi's been on the ground in my constituency in recent weeks, and I genuinely believe he's the best person to take us forwards with a realistic plan, get inflation down, then focus on tax cuts. And I think that's a properly winning formula for realistic people in my constituency.
Well, Tom Tugendhat, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee and candidate in the Tory leadership battle, says he's confident he will win the race.
The whole thing is all about focusing on what we're going to deliver for the United Kingdom, what we're going to deliver for the country, and about a clean start, because the way in which we're going to make this work is by changing the way government works, building trust and being a clean start. And as the only candidate who hasn't been in this government, I am the clean start.
Another 2 rail strikes are now taking place next month. RMT members at Network Rail and 14 train operators say they'll walk out on August the 18th and 20th in a dispute over jobs, pay and conditions. It's after RMT and ASLEF members announced they'll be striking on the 27th and 30th of July as well. The parents of 12-year-old Archie Battersby are awaiting the latest ruling on whether life support will continue for their son. Archie suffered a catastrophic brain injury 3 months ago. Last month, a High Court judge ruled that he was brainstem dead, a view shared by his doctors. However, his parents successfully challenged the judgment in the Court of Appeal and are fighting for treatment to continue. The NHS are facing a surge in hospital admissions amid the heatwave that's affecting parts of the country. The Met Office has issued an amber extreme heat warning across England and Wales from Sunday until Tuesday. Temperatures are due to peak in excess of 35 degrees. Train services like Avanti West Coast may also be disrupted by the weather. MPs and peers believe the government should apologise to women who were forced into unwanted adoptions between the 1950s and 70s. The Joint Committee on Human Rights says it acknowledges the wrongdoing to mothers and their children who still live with the legacy of suffering. It's believed around 185,000 children were taken away from unmarried mothers in England and Wales. US President Joe Biden's meeting with Palestinian leaders in the West Bank today after spending 2 days in Israel. He'll then fly directly to Saudi Arabia for the final leg of his controversial trip to the Middle East. President Biden's expected to hold meetings with Saudi King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The trip's designed to reset the US relationship with a country he once pledged to make a pariah on the world stage. While there, he's also expected to discuss energy supply, human rights and security cooperation. In other news, in Sri Lanka, celebrations after the president's resignation was announced and accepted by Parliament. Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled to Singapore earlier this week after protesters broke into the presidential palace and prime minister's office. There's widespread anger at the regime's handling of an economic crisis and continual shortages of food, fuel and medicine. The prime minister's currently serving as acting president while the election process gets underway. One protester says he believes the people are the real power.
We won everything and we are so happy today that he has resigned. And we feel that when the people come together, we can do everything. We are the real power in this country.
And Ivanka Trump says she's heartbroken following the death of her mother, Ivana Trump. The businesswoman described her mother as brilliant, charming, passionate and wickedly funny. Former President Donald Trump confirmed his ex-wife died in her New York apartment. She was 73. This is GB News, bringing more as it happens now, though. It's back to Patrick with To The Point.
Good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christie's, live on your TV, radio and online. And we've got a great show lined up to kickstart your day and indeed finish your week. So here's what's on the menu. Suella Braverman is the latest candidate in the race to be our next Prime Minister to be eliminated. That's right. The Tory talent show has another victim. The remaining 5 candidates in the Tory leadership election head into a television debate later tonight. You're not going to want to miss that. I'll be bringing you the latest developments, analysis and, most importantly, the gossip as well. That's right. Cab firm Uber is under pressure after leaks reveal the ethically dubious measures the tech giant took to help them aggressively expand. I'll be asking, do our politicians care more about big tech than our black cabbies? I'm also going to be asking why on earth Uber drivers in San Francisco allegedly couldn't stop sexually assaulting people in the back of their cabs. But there we go. The social media platform Twitter is 16 years old today as well. Has the platform transformed the way that politics and media works? And why is it that Donald Trump is banned from Twitter, but the Taliban aren't? Are they really trying to tell me that former President of the United States, Donald Trump, is worse than the leader of the Taliban? We have all of that coming up and much, much more across the programme. You can get in touch as well, your views as usual. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Don't be shy. Yes, well, yesterday, Suella Braverman MP was the latest Conservative MP to be eliminated from the race to be leader of the party, and indeed our next Prime Minister as well. She later said that she will be backing Liz Truss. Well, let's have a look at how much support each candidate has so far, OK? So Rishi Sunak is apparently on 101 votes. Penny Mordaunt is apparently on 83. Liz Truss, 64. Kemi Badenoch, 49. Tom Tugendhat, 32. The remaining 5 candidates are set to have it out in a televised debate later today. Well, joining me now in the studio to bring us up to date is our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, presumably a Prime Minister in waiting as well. Thanks for joining me, Tom. What's the latest?
Don't damn me with that. It's a really fascinating race, this one. It's almost totally unpredictable. It looks likely, but not certain, that Rishi Sunak will be one of the 2 candidates to go through to those final 2 that the membership vote on. But he's deeply unpopular with the membership. All the polls show he loses to every other candidate who's still in the race. Then it's the question, well, potentially he doesn't get through if he doesn't perform well at the debate tonight. Perhaps he'll lose some support. He's not quite there yet, which is surprising. But also, Penny Mordaunt, a surprise contender, a lot stronger performance from her than many people expected. She's in second place. And then the question is, who is going to be the candidate of the right? It's now down to 2 people. It's Liz Truss or Kemi Badenoch. Now, of course...
Is Liz Truss actually of the right, though?
She certainly is. She
Okay.
has a strong free market pedigree in the Tory party. She's been one of the people in the cabinet, alongside Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's been arguing against tax rises and in favour of regulatory divergence from the European Union. That's why Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nadine Dorries backed her so early on. I think the reason why Suella has gone with her in the end over Kemi Badenoch, and a lot of people on the right really like Kemi Badenoch, I think it's probably down to the question of experience. We haven't seen enough of Kemi performing in high-pressure environments, and sadly, the initial process of this race is so short, it's almost very hard to get that scrutiny. Were we to have a month of this, perhaps Kemi would have had time to soar ahead a bit.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because it's not really Kemi's fault, that, right?
No, it's not. It's just simply the way that the Tory leadership election works. If anything, these few days now are far too short, and then the next month and a bit is probably far too long. But that's the rules. Them's the breaks, as the Prime Minister might say.
Them's the breaks, absolutely. Now, I think the big question for me is, of course, the Tories need to win elections. That's why they get rid of leaders so ruthlessly, OK? And if you are confronted by a candidate in the shape of Rishi Sunak, who every single opinion poll is telling you would perform worse than every other candidate, OK? And one of the reasons why they got rid of Boris Johnson is because they thought he'd now become unelectable. I disagree with that, but they thought he'd become unelectable. Why on earth will Rishi Sunak make it through to the final 2? It's suicide.
Well, there's 2 different questions here. Number 1, is Rishi Sunak popular with Tory members? And that's a big no. And then there's another question, is Rishi Sunak popular in the country? Now, his campaign team say that he is. There was one poll that showed he was 1 point ahead of Sir Keir Starmer in a hypothetical race. But when you look into the detail of that poll, all the other candidates were basically 12 points behind. Why was that? There wasn't much difference between any of the other candidates. Then we look at a further poll that came out a couple of days later about name recognition. Rishi Sunak is basically the only candidate people in the country
Eat out to help out, all this stuff.
He has been one of the most famous politicians through the pandemic. Now, not many people in the country know who Penny Mordaunt is, who Kemi Badenoch is, who Tom Tugendhat is, and not many actually know who Liz Truss is either, despite being Foreign Secretary. So potentially the disparity amongst the general public and that polling is simply due to name recognition. So I think there's a big health warning that we need to stick over any poll of the general public at large when most people don't know who the candidates are. So there was a really interesting poll a couple of days ago that made up a name. That put a generic name in.
Oh, this is
and then you saw how the British public were confidently saying, "No, I hate John Smith," standing for the Tory
well,
leadership.
You see, the thing
and
is,
this is a really interesting thing to do. I think every single poll, when it comes to these elections where there are some candidates who are genuinely quite unknown, having a fake name in there sort of sets the test. What would a generic Tory do?
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting qualifier.
Well, I'll tell you what is really interesting is that I do a show, of course, called Friday Night Feast, which is cheeky plug 7 till 9 p.m. This evening. And one of the features on that is fake news. And what I was going to do was go out and make up a name and tell people that they were standing for this kind of stuff. So maybe I should still do that.
You should totally.
Although it sounds like it's already been done, unfortunately.
Do you know what's really interesting though? When you look at the gender breakdown of what people think, men are so much more likely to have a very strong opinion about the invented character, whereas women are more likely to say that they're unsure. It's a fascinating.
Well, I'll do my own survey later and see. I'll need to come up with a name. Tom, thank you very, very much, my good friend Tom Harwood. Our political correspondent. Right, OK, he's whizzing you through, obviously, the runners and the riders and everything that's been going on in this Tory leadership contest. But joining me to talk about this in some more detail is another Tom. We've double-Tommed. We've Tom squared. It's Tom Slater, editor of Spiked Online. Thank you so much for joining me, my good man. So, what have you made of this contest so far, then? Who's in front for you?
Well, who's in front for me is certainly not in front with the Tory MPs. I think the Tory party would be stupid, frankly, not to take a bit of a risk in this Tory leadership race. And for me, that's Kemi Badenoch. I think the issues around the economy, there's not much of a difference between them. They haven't said very much. There's a bit of a difference between do we cut taxes now or do we cut taxes later? Whereas what she's very strong with is on the culture war, which is not to say it's the only issue in town, but I think it's the thing that distinguishes her. And I think it's the thing that could really give Keir Starmer trouble. And I think it's the thing that could really cut through. But of course, as we're seeing, the Tory right, broadly speaking, seem to be coalescing behind Liz Truss. And it seems like, unless there's some kind of like big interventions in the debates to come over the next few days, that it's going to be some combination of Sunak, Mordaunt and Truss in the final two, which I think is a bit of a shame, just because I think all of those three candidates have huge shortcomings in different ways.
Yeah, they do. There's a couple of massive issues to me here. One is, I think, you may disagree with me on this, I'll ask your view, but I think that it's quite important that our next Prime Minister is a Brexiteer. I also think it's quite important that they can tell me what a woman is. Where are you on that?
No, I think that's exactly it. I mean, those are two really important issues, not just for you or I, but certainly for Tory members, surely. Although I think what's kind of kicked in at this point is a kind of false sense of pragmatism. We need to find someone who's a safe pair of hands, or we need to find someone who's got the requisite amount of cabinet experience. That seems to be the thing that's done for Kemi Badenoch at this point, who, as you say, is very strong on the questions of Brexit and the questions of the reality of biological sex, which not all candidates in this race are. And I think that's just a huge mistake. I mean, there was a focus group that came out this morning in the iPaper of Redwall Tory voters in Wolverhampton, and they kind of perfectly summed it up. I mean, they were quite positive to Penny Mordaunt because she is quite personable, and I think the more that comes out about her, the more people will turn against her. But they see Rishi Sunak as basically a bit of an empty suit. He does have the appearance and all the political imagination of a bank manager. And then Liz Truss, who they described as just a little bit odd. I think they compared her to John Major's spitting image puppet. And she's not a great media performer. And also, I think one thing she has that counts against her is one thing Boris Johnson definitely recognised was that the big underserved gap in British politics was pro-Brexit voters in the Red Wall, in places like that, who aren't necessarily purebred Thatcherites. They want more from the government. And given Liz Truss has kind of engaged in this slightly tragic Thatcher Tribute Act, I think that's, when it comes to an election, could be quite damaging for her as well.
Yeah, I mean, there was some absolute corkers in there, Tom, I'll be honest with you. The empty suit, the John Major's spitting image puppet, the tragic Thatcher Tribute Act. I mean, you've got it all, mate. It's about time you had a show here, I think. But no, but seriously, I mean, I think there's an issue for me, which is, you touched on there, which is about what goes on up north, all right? It's an issue that's very close to my heart. Viewers now, listeners, if you're listening on radio or online or whatever, might be thinking, stop banging on about the north, right? But yeah, you have to. If you don't win the north, you don't win a general election, right? OK? And it's a massive, massive issue, this. And I cannot believe how much the Tories, after, as Boris Johnson said, the Red Wall, they lent the Conservatives their vote. How difficult it must have been, Tom, for some people to go back into that working men's club, right, and say, yeah, I voted Tory today, you know. Well, their grandfather would be turning in their grave, but they did it anyway because they really, really backed them. And they need a candidate, right, that can actually go down well up north. And I'm sorry, but I do not believe that Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss does that. Who do you think goes down best up north?
Well, again, it's untested, but I think the one thing that Badenoch has in her arsenal here is not the fact that, you know, she's, again, someone who's naturally rubbing shoulders with people down the working men's club in, you know, in Sedgefield of a Friday evening. It's just the case that I think she is a straight talker. I think that's one thing that she really has in her arsenal. And I think even though people like to dismiss the issue of the culture war, I think it's one of the big dividing lines still between the Tories and Labour. Of course it is. And the reason it's such a dividing line is that it shows that they are more in line with people's everyday values. People might not obsess over the debates that might preoccupy the media in relation to identity politics, but the fundamentals, what it says about how you see the world, is quite important. And I think that's something which could really help her. But I completely agree insofar as the Tories need the Red Wall if they're going to be an electable proposition. There is no coalition partners that are going to come and save them if they end up as losing their majority. And you cannot take those voters for granted. You again, they, as Boris Johnson famously said, lent the Tories their vote last time around. And I think a lot of the discussion at the moment is just obviously focused on the Tory members, so the tenor of it is very different, but none of the contenders who are likely to get through to the final two strike me as people who will have that ability to reach out to those voters and say, you should back us again, you should take that chance again on us.
Good stuff, as always, my good man. Tom Slater there, editor of Spiked Online. I think that we can all agree, just speaking rather a lot of common sense, as indeed Spiked tends to do. You should check them out online if you haven't already. But after the break, I'll be asking, has our political class been too keen to cosy up to American tech giants at the expense of our own black cabbies? Don't go away, I'll be back soon.
Hello, a very good morning to you. I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Early rain for some this morning. Showers then follow for northern England and Scotland, but warm sunny spells are expected elsewhere. And it will turn sunnier through the weekend with increasing temperatures, a substantial rise in those temperatures by Monday and Tuesday. High pressure is building in, but just ahead of that high as it advances from the west, an area of cloud and some outbreaks of rain for parts of Scotland and northern England first thing. The rain quickly clearing Northern Ireland. 1 or 2 showers here, but it takes some time for northern parts of England and Scotland. 1 or 2 showers for mid-Wales, but otherwise plenty of sunny spells for southern England and increasingly Northern Ireland, western Scotland by the end of the afternoon. So a warmer day to come for Northern Ireland and still warm in the south, mid to high 20s in places, but on the cool side where we've got the cloud and those showers for Scotland and northern England, high 20s, or high teens I should say, at their highest. But through the evening, the showers quickly die away, and then tonight looks like a clear night for most. The one exception, northwest Scotland, where there will be some thicker cloud and outbreaks of rain returning. Despite the clear skies elsewhere, actually it's a warmer night, I think, particularly in the south, 14 to 16 Celsius by dawn tomorrow. Nevertheless, with that area of high pressure building across the country, tomorrow morning looks glorious across much of the UK. Sunny skies away from the far north of Scotland, where there will still be some cloud and outbreaks of rain, particularly during the morning. That pushes into the Northern Isles by the afternoon. And with the increased sunshine, it will be warmer. Low 20s widely, 22 for Belfast, 27 for Cardiff, 25 for London. Even higher temperatures are expected during Sunday and more especially Monday and Tuesday. Widespread sunny skies, but the kinds of temperatures we rarely, if ever, experience in the UK.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Yes, good morning, everybody. It's 10:24. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christie's, right here on GB News. We are, of course, live on your TV, online and radio this morning. Now, dwindling numbers of taxi drivers in Suffolk are leaving some of the town's shoppers and residents stuck for a ride, OK? But taxi drivers say that there's much more to this story. It's actually very close to my heart, this, OK? I'm not a natural Uberman myself. I would rather get in a black cab. Sometimes needs must, sometimes money matters, right? OK? But they're complaining now about the amount of support that their industry has received since the start of this cost of living crisis. And our East of England reporter, Ed Crawford, has more on this story for us. Take it away, Ed.
With prices at the pump spiralling, taxi drivers in Suffolk are struggling. Mark Goodchild has been a taxi driver for 24 years and he worries about the industry.
Oh, the rise in fuel prices are crippling us. The local council set our fares and they're not letting us put the fares up. We haven't had a fare rise since 2019. It's just killing us. Drivers are having to work more and more hours. I used to work 50 hours a week. Now I'm working 60 to 80 hours a week just to have less money than I did 2 years ago.
With fuel prices reaching record highs and oil companies making record profits, many feel they're being taken for a ride. The war in Ukraine, the weakness of the pound against the dollar, and corporations wanting to claw back profits after the pandemic are all pushing prices up. That burden affects those who rely on fuel to make their living, so much so, Paul Saunders, another local taxi driver, fears for the future of the industry.
As far as the taxi industry is concerned, it is dwindling and it will dwindle. I don't know what the ultimate future is. I imagine we'll soldier on, but people will drop out. Many people in the 60 plus age group, they are saying, you know, when they come to renew their licence, they're not going to bother anymore. And there are no young people coming in. And that's really where the problem is. If somebody came to me now and said, oh, I want to start up as a taxi driver, I'd say, don't bother. Don't do it. At the moment.
Those fears are backed up by the Licensed Private Hire Car Association, who say taxi and private hire vehicle numbers have decreased dramatically and are unlikely to return in the future. With the continuing fuel price rises, more clean air zones and further council-imposed restrictions, the road ahead for the taxi industry looks uncertain. Ed Crawford, GB News.
Yeah, really interesting report that, Ed. So while we're on this topic, if you've wanted to get a cab in a major city in the last few years, there's a very high chance that you've used Uber, OK, or another app-based company, rather than your local minicab or a black cab. I'm going somewhere you wouldn't use local minicabs, to be fair, but there we go. Uber is facing a big legal battle as 550 former passengers allege a systematic failure to prevent violence against women, sexual abuse against women as well, on its platform. So it's really important, this, because, OK, this might sound far away. Well, it is far away, it's San Francisco, but it's coming over here as well. You mark my words, OK? This will be the start of something. I'm absolutely certain of that. Uber is also under allegations for various different things as well. The Guardian has revealed how the company used large sums of money and high-level lobbying to pursue their aggressive expansion into Europe. To be fair, they wouldn't be the first company to do that. I'm less bothered about the way that they essentially tried to dominate the taxi market. I'm more bothered about the safety of women who sit in the back of those cabs. So, should we really be using these ride-sharing apps? Joining me now to talk about this in more detail is Grant Davis, friend of the show, cabbie and chairman of the London Cab Drivers Club. Hey, good to have you back on, my good man. Nice stuff. Thank you so much for joining us, Grant. It's been at least a couple of weeks since last time I spoke to you. Can we focus a bit more on the safety of the Uber stuff? The aggressive expansion stuff, I mean, if we're going to cast those rules, well, fair enough, but, I mean, McDonald's would never have existed and Starbucks probably wouldn't either. Well, goodness knows about Greg. So, you know, there is a bit of that. But I'm more bothered about the safety of women in the back of an Uber, right? Are they safe, in your opinion, or are they more safe in a black cab?
Oh, no. They're much more safe in a black cab. I mean, listen, everyone brings up the name of John Warboys, right? And the reason why you think that name is because there's only one. In 2020, the regulators reported there were 6,000 sexual assault allegations made by Uber drivers. So there is absolutely thousands and thousands of women and men being sexually assaulted or alleged to be sexually assaulted in the back of Ubers. It's just it's like Wild West out there.
Because it's the argument, isn't it? That was initially the argument with Uber, which is like, you know, I mean, I could get it up on my phone right now, for example. I'm very sorry about this. You're going to hate me. I got an Uber into work this morning. I'm sorry, I just couldn't find a black cab. All right, I'm a traitor, Grant. I'm a traitor. But you know, just because you've got the picture of the person and the name and their license plate, actually doesn't make it kosher, does it?
Well, no, unfortunately, you know, the black cab trade in London has been thrown to the wolves by our regulator and this Tory government. I used to meet Boris when he was Mayor of London every quarter, and one day he called me up and said, Grant, I need to speak to you before the meeting. And he said to me, I've had David on the phone, Cameron, and he's told me today to leave Uber alone. And I thought to myself, you know, the game's up here, because it's bad enough trying to be in unfair competition, but when the actual government is telling the Mayor of London, leave Uber alone, don't bring in any more tighter private hire regulations that might stifle Uber's expansion, you really... I felt like a minor.
Yeah, for a while, it's important to note something as well. I mean, look, absolutely 100%, Uber will probably deny all of these things. We will try and get Uber on. We have tried to get Uber on. We will try to get them on as well, of course, so they can respond to all of this stuff. And look, hey, you know, there's been times in my life when Uber's been an absolute lifesaver for me. When I was working during the very first lockdown, I was doing a radio show and I had to be in work at like 5 a.m. as the tubes weren't running, the trains weren't running, and where I lived at the time, there was absolutely no guarantee that a black cab would go past there just because of my specific location. But what I could guarantee was that if I put an Uber in, you know, I could get from Finchley to Waterloo for £8 or something. So I'm not kind of slagging Uber off wholesale, but what I am saying is I think there are massive issues when it comes to potentially, should we say, the vetting of their drivers. How do you view that?
Well, exactly. I mean, when Uber first come into London, every taxi driver or private hire driver has to have a DBS check. The first initial meetings that Uber was having with TfL, they saw having drivers having to have a DBS check as a barrier to entry. They said, we don't need that, because if a driver gets bad ratings on the app, then we'll sling him off. So that means that you could get a convicted rapist or come in, just drive women, and when an incident happens, they get reported that they've sexually assaulted the passenger, and then they say, "Oh, you can't work for us no more." I'm sorry, public safety is paramount, and that just shows you what Uber really think of passenger safety. Like you said, they've been refused a licence twice in London, and they've had to go to court to get their licence back. I mean, there's massive issues, but they're so powerful. They've got so much money. They've got so many powerful lobbyists working for them. It's an uphill battle.
Well, they were in bed with the
really
Tory government for quite a while, actually, Uber. They were really, really, really high up. And George Osborne had a lot of connections with the people who were desperately trying to bring Uber over here. So it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? But Grant, thank you very, very much. Grant Davies there, friend of the show, cabbie, and chairman of the London Cab Drivers Club. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, after the break, tech giant Twitter is celebrating... It's a Twitterversary. Yes, there we go. Tech giant Twitter is celebrating 16 years, I believe, in existence. I'll be looking at how big an impact they've had on our politics and the media. It's not going away, the Twitter issue, is it? Obviously brought to more relevance as well by Elon Musk and all this kind of that stuff. But, you know, Donald Trump can't go on it, but obviously the Taliban are on it. Is that right? Is that fair? What do you think? Make sure you get in touch. I've got some of your views here in front of me. I'll be going to those very, very shortly. GBviews at gbnews.uk. But before that, time for this morning's headline.
Good morning, it's 10:33. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The remaining 5 candidates will go head-to-head tonight in the first of 3 live televised debates. Suella Braverman has given her support to Liz Truss as the next Tory leader after being knocked out of the leadership race yesterday. The Attorney-General says the Foreign Secretary is the candidate to unleash the opportunities of Brexit. Former Chancellor Rishi Sunak won the most votes, with Trade Minister Penny Mordaunt coming in second. Another 2 rail strikes are now taking place next month. RMT members at Network Rail and 14 train operators say they'll walk out on August the 18th and 20th in a dispute over jobs, pay and conditions. It's after RMT and ASLEF members announced they'll be striking on the 27th and 30th of July. And in the last few minutes, the Met Office have just updated their weather to a red warning for Monday and Tuesday. It's amid warnings the NHS are facing a surge in hospital admissions during the heatwave that's affecting parts of the country. The Met Office has issued a red extreme heat warning across England and Wales from Sunday until Tuesday. In other news, in Sri Lanka, celebrations after the president's resignation was announced and accepted by Parliament yesterday. Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled to Singapore this week after protesters broke into the presidential palace. There's been unrest over the economic crisis in the country. The Prime Minister is currently serving as acting president and says he'll take immediate steps to establish the rule of law and peace in the country. And Ivanka Trump says she's heartbroken following the death of her mother, Ivana Trump. The businesswoman described her mother as brilliant, charming, passionate and wickedly funny. Former President Donald Trump confirmed his ex-wife died in her New York apartment. She was 73. TV Online and DAB Plus Radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound buys $1.184 and 1.179 euros. The price of gold currently stands at £1,439.49 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News, investments that matter.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Well, a very good morning, everybody. It's 10:38, about to be 10:39. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christie's, right here on GB News, live, as ever, on your TV, online and radio this morning. Now, I'm sure that at some point in your life, you, a friend, a loved one maybe, have had their phone stolen or something important stolen, OK? And it happens far too often, as far as I'm concerned, right? But what doesn't happen often is actually finding your stolen items. Now, amid the cost of living crisis, inflation is at an all-time high, petrol and food prices are through the roof. So, is pickpocketing on the rise, and are there ways to stop it from happening, OK? So, what do you do if you do happen to be unfortunate enough to be the victim of phone theft? There is a story behind why we're doing this particular story, which I will tell you later on, so stay tuned for that. But there we go. With me to discuss this now is former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley. Peter, thank you very much. Great to see you. So, is pickpocketing on the rise, in your view?
Well, unfortunately, an awful lot of types of crime are on the rise, which is why we all have to take great steps to protect ourselves and protect those items that we've worked so hard for, because unscrupulous villains will try to steal our stuff. I'm not entirely sure if pickpocketing per se is on the rise, but it's a crime that simply never goes away. And I'm currently in southern Spain, an area where there are often many pickpockets operating. So it's very much at the forefront of my thinking at the moment.
Absolutely, Peter. And also, the thing is as well, look, a lot of people, so full disclosure, everybody. So there's a particular person who works on this show who had their phone nicked, right? And I did my best to try to get it back. You can track your iPhone these days, so we managed to find an address where we believed that iPhone was. It turned out to be a phone shop, Peter. Who would have thought it, that someone has nicked a phone and handed it into a phone shop for some cash? We worked out it would have cost me about 700 quid to get that phone back. And I don't like it that much, so I didn't pay it. But, Peter, what can you do to protect yourself against pickpockets, then?
OK, if you're travelling on the underground, give yourself some space. Don't keep your own personal space, whatever environment you're in. Do not let people intrude that space. If, for example, you're coming home after a night out, you might find that people will approach you. They'll outwardly appear to be friendly. They'll want to hold you, hug you, shake your hand. Don't allow any of that, because what they're basically doing is distracting you so that they can slide their hand into your pocket or your bag and remove your phone or your keys or whatever it is that you've got in your pocket.
Yeah, Peter, can I ask, you know, some people say that the police aren't always the most proactive when it comes to this. Let's just take this case as an example. Now, especially bear in mind that I'm based in London here now, right? And London is basically almost its own country. It's got a very dense population. There's a lot of other crimes going on. To be fair, a lot more serious than someone having their phone nicked, right? So I do completely understand this. But the fact is, we did get in touch with the police and basically tell them where this phone was. And obviously, well, they're yet to go round. Are people right to criticise the police sometimes when they say they don't do enough? Or do you think they're just a bit overworked and overstretched?
No, people are right to criticise the police. Let's face it, there are 6 forces in the UK that are in special measures, including the Metropolitan Police. So that clearly shows that they are failing. They're failing you, me, your viewers, your listeners, the public. For a police service to be placed into special measures is an absolute disgrace and shame on the senior management team who have absolutely failed to do their job. Our police officers are overworked, they're underpaid, but that is still no excuse. We need more officers to join, yes, certainly, but no. In many, many regards, I'm afraid, our police are falling way short of what we should expect from them.
Fair enough. Now, Peter, sorry, forgive me for this. I can see on my screen there, it looks as though you're on holiday, is that right? Or do you live in Marbella now?
No. I'd love to be on holiday, but I'm working. I'm out here working for a few days.
Oh, fantastic. All right, well, I won't go into too much detail because it's probably quite closely guarded stuff. But can I was going to ask, how do you do Marbella, right? Because there's a lot of Brits that go there like, I like the sun, but I want a roast dinner on a Sunday, I want bingo on Tuesday, and this, that and the other. They basically treat it like Little England on sea. But have you immersed yourself into the local culture?
Well, yes, I do. I like paella. And I like an occasional Spanish beer, and I try to weave myself into the local culture as much as I possibly can. Although if, for example, you go to places like Puerto Banús, where I was last night working, Spanish culture, sadly, seems to be a bit thin on the ground. But yeah, it's a country I'm very fond of. And you can ask what I'm doing, Patrick. I'm out here hunting Kevin Parle, of course.
Say that again, Peter. I missed that. What are you there doing?
Yeah, I'm out here hunting Kevin Parle, which has been my life's mission for the last 3 years. Yeah.
Hey, well, I tell you what, we've got a follow-up interview booked in already, Peter, by the sounds of things. So thank you very much. And cheers, mate. Great to have you on the show. And good luck as well, I'm sure. I tell you what, if I was him, I would not want you after me. So there we go. Thank you very much. Peter Plexi there, of course, who is a former Scotland Yard detective, investigative police officer as well. Right, well, moving away from that now. Now, on the 15th of July 2006, 16 years ago, 2006, it's mental, isn't it? The social media platform Twitter was invented. What began as a micro-blogging site has developed now into a big tech behemoth. Everyone from celebrities, brands, politicians, everybody, even the Taliban, uses Twitter to share their thoughts and indeed products. But has it become too powerful? Has it become too censorious, which is a word I've never said before? Censorious, fantastic. That might be my new favourite word, particularly when it comes to right-wing voices. And how is it right? OK, how can it be right? Whatever your thoughts are about former President of the United States, Donald Trump, whatever your thoughts are about him, how can it be right that he is not on Twitter when the Taliban is? The supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khomeini, or obviously spokespeople for various different terror organisations, they're allowed to have a voice. And you're telling me that you think that Donald Trump is worse or more dangerous than them? Well, that's rubbish, isn't it? Well, to discuss this further, I'm delighted to be joined by Jason Miller, CEO of the social media platform Gettr and former aide to Donald Trump. Thank you so much for joining us. Jason, I know we've spoken a few times.
Patrick, good morning.
Good stuff, man. I know we've spoken a few times about this issue, so I'm keen to take a slightly different approach on it, right? And I want to delve into a bit more about your relationship with Donald Trump, because the question here is, as far as Twitter is concerned, they view him to be more dangerous than the Taliban, right? But you know it. You've interacted with him. Is he?
No, that's the silliest thing ever. But the fact, it's not just the Taliban, it's the Ayatollah, it's the political director for Hamas, it's Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela, who, in my opinion, is a complete terrorist. The fact that Twitter allows these voices, but not the former president of the United States, is absurd.
And do you see this changing anytime soon? Because Elon Musk was supposed to take it over, and then he kind of wasn't taking it over. Now he might be sued. You know, do you see Twitter as something that's always going to be an inherently left-wing product?
Well, I think that's what they've become now. I think when they launched some 15 years ago, I think they did have a goal of connecting people and promoting free speech around the world. But what it's become now is they support free speech if they agree with you. And so they don't want everybody around the world to connect. They just want certain voices. And I think that's the problem when you effectively are a public utility, this digital town square on a global scale, when you decide to shut off certain voices but not others. You know, Patrick, I get asked all the time, as someone who was a senior advisor for President Trump in his 2020 race, what would I have done differently? I'll tell you, we would have launched an additional social media platform before then, because I never thought, I was one of those people who was a denier. No way big tech would turn off a sitting president of the United States, but that's what they did.
Yeah, and it's a really fascinating thing, actually, isn't it? Because you will know more about this than me, but kind of Fox News, when Fox News kind of first launched, it was seen as a bit of a mouthpiece. It was there to serve a particular purpose, right, wasn't it? And I can't help but wonder whether or not, are you trying to do something similar here with Gettr, which I must admit I'm not on. I need to get on it by the sounds of things, but maybe I should do it right now. But are you trying to serve a certain market? Just talk me through what Gettr is, because it's like an alternative Twitter, isn't it?
Well, yes, it's an all-in-one free speech platform. So we've taken the timeline, the microblogging, as you have with the Twitter or with the Facebook. We've added in the live streaming, where people are broadcasting their content, whether it be news programs or pundits, things of that nature. But now we've also brought in Vision, which is our short video competitor to TikTok and Instagram Reels, except no CCP controlling the data. There's none of that nonsense. But we've put it together in this all-in-one free speech platform, a single app called Gettr, GETTR, and we're making sure nobody is ever going to be shut down for their political voice, whether they're on the left or the right.
Yeah, it's interesting, really, because there's a wider point here, which is about censorship, which is about one school of thought being acceptable and another school of thought not being. And we're seeing it now writ large across society. So we've got the kind of trans stuff, OK? You could argue that there was, you know, it's a lot of people go to dinner parties and claim they voted Remain instead of Brexit in this country when you know full well that they voted for Brexit, right? A lot of people say, oh, you know, I want to let everyone into this country. The Rainbow Flag Brigade. Well, actually, hang on a minute. You would rather... The second that your kid is of school age, you move out to the suburbs, right, to some kind of leafy area, to a school that's basically all white, right? And this is the thing. So there's a lot of kind of internal censorship there. Are you concerned at the way society is going, where there's an acceptable point of view and what's quotes unquote an unacceptable one? And if you fall into that unacceptable bracket, you just get cancelled.
Yeah, that's a great point. It started with academia, it's moved into the media, and then also with the business world. And quite frankly, that's why I was so concerned with this online safety bill in the UK, which fortunately has been tabled for the moment. It's going to come back and rear its ugly head. But the fact that when you start getting Ofcom or government regulators deciding legal but harmful, they're going to shut down any voice who they disagree with.
No, absolutely. Can I ask, sorry, I'm not quite across this. What time is it where you are now at the minute? You're in Washington, D.C., is that right?
Absolutely. So it's about 5:45 in the morning, yes.
5:45 in the morning. He's got himself out of bed, got himself suited and booted, and he's come live on British national television. Good man. Thank you so much. I must say, an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. As always, please keep coming back. That's Jason Miller there, CEO of social media platform Gettr, former aide as well to Donald Trump. Just reacting to a few things there. So Elon Musk might be pulling out of Twitter. OK, fine, OK. They might be suing him as a result of that. There's also, of course, the censorship going on Twitter. How do you feel about it? GB Views at gbnews.uk. Just very quickly, I've got a couple of them in front of me now. Not about that, but about something else, about the Tory leadership. Steve in Burnley says, I'm a dedicated Tory voter, but, I'm just reading this now, if Rishi Sunak becomes the leader of my party, I would vote for Starmer rather than Sunak. Good grief, Steve. MPs vote for the leader, but it is the people that vote for the next PM. Look, Steve, it's a really interesting point, that. And obviously, you're entitled to vote whoever you want to vote for, right? But it's a really interesting point, that, because the British public did vote for Boris Johnson in massive numbers, right? Massive numbers, huge majority. And then there was a vote of confidence in Parliament, and he won that. And then, because they couldn't get rid of him any other way, MPs decided to oust him. And I just wonder whether or not you think Boris Johnson was fit to lead, whether or not you think he was fit to rule, whether or not you think he made mistakes. I just wonder how democratic that is, right? Is that really democracy? Is it that a group of people can just get rid of him? I don't know. Anyway, Jane's been on. So glad you're back. So am I, Jane. I must say, I've missed it. To the point, it's just not the same without you. Oh, God, thank you, Jane. I'm backing Liz Truss because she represents some continuity with Boris. She has been backing of staunch Boris supporters like Nadine Dorries, Jacob Rees-Mogg, and doesn't stab in the back. Jane, cracking point, and obviously you like me, which means I like you. But I'm concerned about Liz Truss. I've met her a few times, right? And I've spoken to her a few times. I've heard her talk, obviously publicly, we all have, but also behind the scenes. And I'm not that impressed. I'm just not that impressed. Anyway, GBViews at gbnews.uk. Loads of them coming in. Please keep them coming, people. Let me know what you think about any of the massive, massive topics that we're talking about today. But here are some stories that you might have missed. I love the fact that we do this at the end of every single hour. This is, of course, our Nibs section, the stories that you might have missed. So get your teeth stuck into this. A cafe worker was unfairly dismissed after failing to use smiley emojis in a text message. Yeah, I know. They fired its cafe supervisor after not using smiley face emojis in a text message sent to senior staff about rostering, so basically about their schedule, I suppose. In the messages, the supervisor said the businesses needed to hire another staff member for their other venue to manage understaffing. So didn't pop a smiley... didn't pop a smiley face emoji at the end of basically saying to people, you need to work harder and need more of you. I mean, for goodness sake, some of the people, can I just say, some of the people I've worked for in the past, right, who are essentially tyrants, right? And this is, but good. In the news industry, it may shock you, ladies and gentlemen, to know that there's a few rather, shall we say, tough-to-please people at the top of it, right? Sometimes, OK? Not here, it must be said. Especially in newspapers. Goodness gracious me, some of the people that used to remind... The idea that you'd sat there for not using a smiley emoji, I don't even think they know it exists. Anyway, trust in the government is well below par compared with other major democracies, a survey has shown. So apparently, just 35% of people say that they have faith in this government. 6% less than the average for members of the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development. Well, there we go. Also, let's just move on quickly. The UK scored lower than countries including Estonia, where the Prime Minister was brought down last year by corruption. This is absolute rubbish. I'm sorry, there's no way that this survey is true, OK? The vast majority of people in this country do not think... Well, they might think our government's incompetent, but I tell you what do they think about the opposition? I'll just say that. Keep all your thoughts coming in to us on email as well. gbviews at gbnews.uk. Don't be shy, I've got loads of them in front of me here. I'll go to them very, very shortly. Thank you, everyone who's been getting in touch. We'll be back with more on today's top stories. Plenty of your views as well after this very short break. Stay tuned.
Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. A fine, sunny but increasingly hot weekend will lead into some extreme heat for the early part of next week. The Met Office have issued warnings, extreme heat warnings for Sunday into Tuesday. High pressure is building in. That's creating the rising temperatures. But at the moment, at least, there's weather fronts sitting across parts of the north, bringing quite a lot of clouds and some outbreaks of rain across northwest England. A few showers coming into Scotland, the far northwest turning drier and brighter. A cloudier day for the Midlands and southern parts of England, but still quite a lot of sunshine along the south coast. And it's pretty warm out there. Temperatures, though, just getting into the mid to maybe high 20s. Fairly cool, though, with the cloudier weather further north and some showers around. However, temperatures are going to be ticking up both by day and by night as we go through the weekend. This evening, a few showers lingering over parts of northeast England before steadily fading away. For many, it'll turn into a dry night and a clear night. Actually, a reasonably comfortable night as well, with temperatures certainly in rural parts of the north dipping down to single figures, but staying in the teens further south. However, the heat will start to build through the weekend. A fine summer's day for the vast majority tomorrow. Some rain likely across northern parts of Scotland, spreading across the Northern Isles. A few showers over the Highlands and the Western Isles, but sunny spells through the Central Belt, Northern Ireland, and for most of England and Wales. And temperatures tomorrow Still fairly pleasant for most places, low to mid-20s, maybe high 20s across the southeast, and cooler with the cloud and rain further north. It's what happens really through Sunday, Monday and Tuesday that's the problem. With high pressure shifting away, we are drawing up hot air, really hot air from Spain and Portugal. Extreme heat is likely through Monday and Tuesday. The Met Office have issued warnings. For more details on those warnings and advice about what to do, visit the Met Office website. Bye for now.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Oh, a very good morning, everybody. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christie's, right here on GB News, live on your TV, radio, and of course, online as well. You can find us every single place you look. We're with you all the way through until midday. A show jam-packed with all of the biggest stories, lots of discussion, expert guests. Make sure that you get in touch with us. We've got a big final hour coming up for you here, ladies and gentlemen, OK? Not to be missed. We're talking about the latest that's going on in the channel. 14,000 people have already arrived here so far this year. I did a big exclusive the other night on Migrant hotels. We'll be following up on that, but make sure that you get in touch as well with your views as usual. GBviews at gbnews.uk. We'll be going to those throughout the show, but now it's time for all your headlines.
Good morning, it's just gone 11 o'clock. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The remaining 5 candidates will go head-to-head tonight in the first of 3 live televised debates. Suella Braverman has given her support to Liz Truss as the next Tory leader after being knocked out of the leadership race yesterday. The Attorney-General says the Foreign Secretary is the candidate to unleash the opportunities of Brexit. Former Chancellor Rishi Sunak won the most votes, with Trade Minister Penny Mordaunt coming in second. Conservative MP Richard Holden told GB News he's backing Rishi Sunak.
I think Rishi is by far the best person positioned to win seats like mine, take that fight to Labour at the next general election, because I can see that coalition, Labour and the Lib Dems, propped up by the SNP. I don't want to see our country broken apart. And Rishi's been on the ground in my constituency in recent weeks, and I genuinely believe he's the best person to take us forwards with a realistic plan, get inflation down, then focus on tax cuts. And I think that's a properly winning formula for realistic people in my constituency.
Meanwhile, Tom Tugendhat, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee and another candidate in the Tory leadership battle, says he's confident he will win the race.
The whole thing is all about focusing on what we're going to deliver for the United Kingdom, what
we're going to deliver for the country, and about a clean start, because the way in which we're going to make this work is by changing the way government works, building trust and being a clean start. And as the only candidate who hasn't been in this government, I am the clean start.
The Met Office has issued a red extreme heat warning for parts of England on Monday and Tuesday. That's the highest alert, and it means there's a danger to life amid soaring temperatures. It comes along with warnings from the NHS that they're facing a surge in hospital admissions during the heat wave. Tuesday is expected to be the hottest day, with temperatures likely to top the UK record of 38.7 degrees. Another 2 rail strikes are now taking place next month. RMT members at Network Rail and 14 train operators say they'll walk out on August the 18th and 20th in a dispute over jobs, pay and conditions. It's after RMT and ASLEF members announced they'll be striking on the 27th and 30th of this month. The parents of 12-year-old Archie Battersby are waiting the latest ruling on whether life support will continue for their son. Archie suffered a catastrophic brain injury 3 months ago. Last month, a High Court judge ruled that he was brainstem dead, a view shared by his doctors. However, his parents successfully challenged the judgment in the Court of Appeal and are fighting for treatment to continue. MPs and peers believe the government should apologise to women who were forced into unwanted adoptions between the 1950s and 70s. The Joint Committee on Human Rights says it acknowledges the wrongdoing to mothers and their children who still live with a legacy of suffering. It's believed around 185,000 children were taken away from unmarried mothers in England and Wales. US President Joe Biden's meeting with Palestinian leaders in the West Bank today after spending 2 days in Israel. He then flies directly to Saudi Arabia for the final leg of his controversial trip to the Middle East. He's expected to hold meetings with Saudi King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The trip's designed to reset the US relationship with a country he once pledged to make a pariah on the world stage. While there, he's also expected to discuss energy supply, human rights and security cooperation. In other news, in Sri Lanka, celebrations after the president's resignation was announced and accepted by Parliament yesterday. Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled to Singapore this week after protesters broke into the presidential palace. There's been unrest over the economic crisis in the country. The Prime Minister is currently serving as acting president and says he'll take immediate steps to establish the rule of law and peace in the country.
We won everything, and we are so happy today that he has resigned. And we feel that when the people come together, we can do everything. We are the real power in this country.
That was one protester speaking from Sri Lanka. Now we're all being asked to get involved in a big butterfly count to help monitor the insects. Conservation experts say 2/5 of British butterflies face the threat of extinction and that counting them helps act as an early warning system. Oh, and apparently observing the creatures is good for our mental health. So get counting. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now, though, let's return to Patrick with To The Point.
Good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christie's, on your TV, radio and, of course, online as well. You really can get us everywhere, people. We've got a great show lined up for you for our final hour, so here's what's on the menu. The top story today is now apparently the heatwave. Can you believe it? Yes, OK, good job we've got aircon in this studio, otherwise I'd be having a Rudy Giuliani moment, wouldn't I? But the Met Office has issued a red extreme heat warning for parts of England on Monday and Tuesday. The highest alert means there's a danger to life, apparently, amid soaring temperatures. Can I just say, when I get on the tube, right, or I get on the train, and they go, ladies and gentlemen, please bear in mind that it's a bit hot today. Can you drink some water? I'm an adult. I don't need to be told to drink. I know when I'm hot. Anyway, we move on. It comes amid warnings that the NHS are facing a surge in hospital admissions during the heatwave that's affecting parts of the country. Of course, the number of migrants crossing the channel as well into the UK this year past 14,000. But what actually happens to them when they arrive? So there was a story that came out yesterday that I'm really quite keen to highlight because I think a lot of media, frankly, will ignore it, which is about the fact that an Afghan man who moved to France actually committed a series of very, very, very serious sexual assaults on young boys, right, and indeed girls as well. His defence team said, or trying to claim, that what was actually happening there was a part of his culture. Now, I want to know, when people arrive here on a beach in Dover, what are they asked? What's the scrutiny? What are their questions? Because if someone thinks that it's normal to rape kids, and I'm sorry, but we shouldn't be having that, I'll be talking about this in more detail with an immigration lawyer. I'll also be talking to former Conservative Minister Brooks Newmark, who's been assisting in getting women and children away from conflict danger zones in Ukraine. He's been on the show loads of times. You know who he is by now, I'm sure. Brooks Newmark there, who's basically, yes, been doing a lot of charitable work in Ukraine. Ukraine, again, is a story that's gone away far too quickly, in my opinion. We need to keep banging this drum. I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, here's a turn up for the books as well. We're going to be joined, right at the end of the show, by, I mean, the absolute super, quite literally a superstar, singer Ella Henderson. That's right, to talk about women's Euros football, believe it or not, and what she's planned for this summer. I can't wait. I must say, I'm a massive fan of Ella Henderson, so I can't wait for that. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. But we've got all of that coming up and much, much more across the programme. You can get in touch. I've got some of your views in front of me right here as well. GB Views at gbnews.uk. Let's have it, people. Right, now more on that breaking story that you just heard there in the bulletin. So the Met Office has said that they've now issued a red weather warning for areas across the UK. Temperatures across much of the Midlands and southern England could reach 40 degrees Celsius, apparently, for the first time. Well, to look at why this heatwave is headed our way and the possible damage that it could do is John Hammond, the director of weathertrending.com. John, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Some people say, you know what, it's summer, it's hot, what's the news?
Yes, and they're wrong. I mean, as you just said, we could well break the all-time record. We could well hit 40 degrees. That's never been recorded before. So to say that it's just summer is rather sort of underplaying what could well be an incredibly impactful couple of days on Monday and Tuesday. Now, I know there'll be accusations of nanny statism, etc., but if we don't issue a red warning with these sorts of temperatures coming our way, then when the heck do we issue a red warning? So I'm not at all surprised that the Met Office has pressed the button and gone red with this one, because I think the impacts will be major. They're not going to last forever. It'll all be over by Wednesday. But for Monday and Tuesday, impacts to infrastructure, transport, health. And I would imagine that many schools will be closed as well, because this country can't cope with 35 degrees. But when we're talking about the potential for 40 degrees, then I think all actions that can be taken should be taken. And we may well be in a situation, there's going to be COBRA meetings taking place over the next day or so about this, Patrick. We could well be in a situation where businesses are encouraged perhaps to only allow key workers in, and for that, many other people who don't have to go to work are encouraged to stay at home. That's how severe it looks like being.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I'll tell you what, just run us through the exact details then. So what is the weather schedule to actually be like, and where in the UK in the next couple of days, mate?
Yeah, OK. I mean, at the moment, it's fine and it's sunny for many places, and actually there's some rain across Scotland. So it's relatively run-of-the-mill at the moment, and people are thinking, what's all the fuss about? Well, we've been keeping an eye on a plume of intense heat building up across Spain and Portugal over the last couple of days. Now, that is now set to pulse northwards. All the computer models are in agreement with that, and it's really going to start to arrive on Sunday. So we have an amber warning for Sunday. I don't think Sunday's temperatures are going to be that exceptional, but they'll be up into the 30s, which is hot enough for many and probably too hot for some. But it's really, Patrick, through Sunday night and into Monday, when that bubble of intense heat is going to sit across the UK, and it's particularly England and Wales. And if you have a look at the Met Office website, you'll see that the red warning is for an area extending from London up through parts of the Midlands and into the conurbations of parts of northern England as well. And this is where we think at this stage, through Monday and Tuesday, we'll be up into the high 30s and potentially one or two places could hit 40. And it's not just daytime temperatures, of course, it's the nighttime temperatures. We're going to be breaking records, certainly. And overnight, some places could well stay in the mid-20s, would you believe? That's unbearable. Of course, air conditioning is still pretty rare, and most people's homes don't have air conditioning. So it's just that advice to sort of not go out, to stay indoors, in actual fact, because the coolest areas are going to be indoors, not outdoors. Normally we think fling open the windows and let some cool air in. That will not be the case through Monday and Tuesday. The air outside will be hotter than the air inside. So people have just got to heed the warnings. Do very little on Monday and Tuesday. Drink lots of water and look after the vulnerable.
John, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show, I must say. It's funny, actually, because it's one of those... You're one of those people that I've actually bizarrely seen on the TV loads of times, and then now all of a sudden I end up interviewing you, so that's great. John, thank you very much. John Hammond there, of course, the director of weathertrending.com. Look, do take heed, people. I don't want to belittle this and make light of it. It's going to be very hot in the next few days, and do seriously, obviously, make sure that you've got things in place and you look after yourselves, you don't get sunburnt, and, you know, you do drink enough water. But at the same time, right, I have immense faith in the people of this country to recognise when they are too hot and to cool themselves down without the need for someone in a tannoy saying, drink water, drink water. Right, I'm an adult human being. I'm aware of when I need to drink some water. I'm aware of when I need to have a cold shower. I'm aware of all of these things. I do not need to be told by someone on the tube, right, that I now need to all of a sudden drink a bottle of Evian or something. Anyway, we hear every day more and more about illegal migrants, don't we, crossing the channel, with over 1,000 people making the journey in the last week. Now, around 14,000, let that sink in, 14,000 migrants have made the crossings this year. So after navigating, obviously, one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world, if not the busiest shipping lane in the world, actually, of course, the English Channel, from France, in small boats such as dinghies, provisional government figures show that as well. So I've been wondering, OK, what actually happens when you cross the Channel and you get to Dover? What's the next step, right? Because I'm deeply concerned, I'm sure we all are, right? I'm deeply concerned on a few different counts. There's a story that broke yesterday, as far as I could see it, about a chap in France who basically raped kids, right? And he was Afghani, he came over here, he came over to France, I should say, and the defence that he used, unsuccessfully, thankfully, the defence that he used was that it was normal in his culture to do that, and that nobody had told him that you couldn't do that in France, right? So that was his legal defence, OK? Well, I'm concerned about this, naturally, and I want to know what the procedure is if you arrive here in a boat in Dover, right? What kind of questions are you asked? Or do we even say to you, by the way, we're not even bothered that you're here illegally, we will let you stay, that doesn't matter, but do you mind us just informing you a little bit about what our cultural norms are? Do we even do that? Anyway, here we go. We're going to go to the guest right now. Who'll be speaking to me about this is immigration lawyer Ivan Sampson. Thank you very much, Ivan. Good to see you again. I saw you very recently, actually. Ivan, look, can you tell me what actually happened? So let's just say I rock up on a boat in Dover, right? What's the immediate procedure?
Well, the first thing they do is find out who these people are, where they're coming from, ask them whether they've got any identity with them, and then ask them why they're there. I mean, many people are coming here to claim asylum, as you know, and people coming across from the Channel familiar with our asylum policy. So the next question is, what reason are they claiming asylum? So it could be for political opinion, it could be because of ethnicity, it could be because of their sexual orientation. And then they have to attend what's called an asylum screening interview, which lasts between 30 minutes to about 2 hours. And they ask more questions, more details about why they're claiming asylum and the evidence they have to support their claim. Following that, there's a substantive.
Yeah, sorry, can I just interject? It's just quickly, Ivan, sorry, just quickly. I think some people are thinking, well, hang on a minute, it's one thing, look, the Rwanda flights are not taking off anytime soon, are they? Let's be honest, right? It's not happening. And we don't appear to deport that many people anyway. So some people would argue that we talk a good game when it comes to border security, but actually we don't put that game into play, as it were. Is it not reasonable when someone gets here to say, look, these are, if you're going to stay here, which apparently we're going to let you, right, these are our cultural norms and values. Someone should not be able to use a defence in court, like the guy did in France, that I wasn't aware that I couldn't have sex with underage boys because it was part of my culture.
Absolutely. No, there's no defence at all. Look, we've got powers to remove any illegal immigrant under Section 10. Anyone who's breached immigration rules, who's an overstayer, who's used deception, can leave. We have all those powers. The problem is we don't have mechanisms to remove them. I'll give you an example. Syrian, let's say Syrian, which is the majority of asylum claimants. Even if they are failed here, we've then got to go to the Syrian government and say, can you have them back? The Syrian government turned around and said, well, actual fact, you spent £500 million supplying arms to people trying to depose the government. They're not taking anybody back. Happened same in Zimbabwe. For decades, we could not remove people to Zimbabwe because the host country of origin, would not take them back. And this is the genesis of the Rwanda policy, because the government's realized, wait a second, we can't send these people back to their country of origin. We've got to send them to somewhere else. Now, I have no problems with that policy. My problem is that Rwanda is not a safe country, and that's why it will fail. If the Secretary of State
just forgive me on this. Sorry to interrupt.
Assassinating people.
Okay, just quickly. Is Rwanda not safer than the country that they're fleeing, then?
It's not a comparative whether it's safer. It's whether there's a risk of persecution.
If you're fleeing a country because you think it's too unsafe to live there, is Rwanda a safer country than the one that they're leaving?
I've no idea, but look, let me tell you, if you were in Rwanda, Patrick, if you were there, you'd probably end up in prison. You wouldn't have a fair trial, and there's a good risk as a journalist speaking his mind, which you do. You're going to get assassinated. That's Rwanda.
Is really?
Yes, it is, and it's in the government's own report.
So Arsenal Football Club should not have "Visit Rwanda" written on their shirt. They shouldn't have Rwanda as their major sponsor. So Arsenal Football Club is what, promoting things like assassinations? Is it unfair trials? All this stuff.
Well, if they're aware of them and they've still gone ahead with it, that's a matter for them. But the point is, read your own country report, I say to Priti Patel. They accept that these things go on. There isn't a system of fair trials. Look, Rwanda's not the right answer. We need a deterrent. We mustn't have illegal immigration. We mustn't have bogus asylum seekers. So we need an effective deterrent. And the first thing I would do if I was the PM, if I was Rishi Sunak or Penny Mordaunt, is sack Priti Patel. She's not competent to run that.
Well, she's been pretty useless, to be fair, hasn't she? You know,
I agree. There is no mechanism for removing. And the fact, mate, the people coming across the channel, it's going to get worse. Do you know what determines the number of people coming across the channel? The weather.
Weather,
I mean, we're at the mercy of the weather. If the weather's nice, more people. If the weather's not nice, we don't get many.
No, I must say, Ivan, thank you, by the way. I always enjoy our back and forth. It's great to have you on the show. Ivan Sampson there, of course, an immigration lawyer. But I must say, I did enjoy, actually. You remember that talk of a giant wave machine? Do everyone remember that? There was a story that I read one day. I was confronted by a news story one day. I walked into the office. Priti Patel wants giant wave machine to deter migrants in the Channel. And I thought, are we really there? Is that where we're at? Because, A, it's the Channel, so you can't really... I mean, it would have to be a genuinely giant wave machine, wouldn't it? But also, on top of that, as well, you think, is that really where we are? Well, how desperate was that ideas meeting? I'm sure wherever you work now, if you're listening online or whatever you're doing now, you all probably have the occasional meeting at work, like a brainstorming session, right? Where someone sits down, there's a big round table jobber, and everyone sit there and they go... And you're all bang out of ideas. And this one, it's like... Some guy's gone, what about a wave machine? Yes! Steve, well done, mate, well done. Can everyone be more like... Can everyone be a bit more like Steve, please, right? Wave machine, good. It's not going to work, is it? It's nuts. It was absolute madness, but clearly that's where we are. Anyway, right after the break, we'll be talking to someone who's been helping evacuate women and children out of Ukraine as the war with Russia continues. Stay tuned, don't go anywhere. We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital, absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain every Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. A news hour that comes with a trigger warning. Scorching hot opinion with prominent guests saying the unsayable and a little bit of weekend fun thrown in. Unlike other broadcasters, I won't be forgetting what the B in our name stands for. So howie in for Real Britain Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
Oh, yes. Good morning, everybody. It's 11:24. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christie's, right here on GB News, live as ever on your TV, online and radio this morning. Let's continue to get stuck right in. So, now, let's take you through some of the headlines of the day that you might have missed, your alternative news, as it were. Well, apparently working from home is killing demand for the traditional British pint, apparently, according to the boss of pub chain Wetherspoons, Tim Martin, who is an out-and-out legend, by the way. Tim Martin. By the way, just to think about Wetherspoons, apparently the story is that he had a teacher at school who told him he would never amount to anything, right? Mr. Wetherspoon. And so when he got the funding to set up a chain of pubs, which is arguably Britain's most successful chain of pubs, right? He decided to name it after the teacher who told him he would never amount to anything. And I rate that, to be honest with you. Tim Martin says that the recovery in sales of draft ales, lagers and ciders following the pandemic is lagging behind other drinks in his 861 pubs. Have that, Mr. Wetherspoon. He blames the slump even, on Britain's continuing reliance on remote working, which means that fewer drinkers are buying pints after work. I can see that, but it's not just all about the pubs, OK? It's about wider society as well. Wherever you work now, I would imagine, depending on where you are, obviously, I would imagine there's probably like a local sandwich shop. I'm not talking about your chains here. I'm not talking about your Greggs and this, that and the other. You know, your local independent coffee shop or sandwich shop or whatever, right? Well, they obviously used to locate themselves near where people used to be in the office. And so if people aren't going to the office anymore, then they go out of business. And so this working from home stuff, I do think there's a bigger economic picture at play here. And I would not obviously want to hold a gun to anyone's head and force them to do anything that, they shouldn't be doing. But I think people should be strongly encouraged to go back to the office, as far as I'm concerned, because actually there's a wider economic impact at play here. You need to keep the wheels of our economy turning. But we're going to move on from that right now and talk about the central Ukrainian city of Vinnytsia. And it's still reeling from this Russian missile strike, OK, that struck civilian buildings, a cultural centre as well, killing at least 23 people, including 3 children. It's the latest in a long line of atrocities that's taking place in Ukraine. It wounded dozens more. Now, Brooks Newmark, a former Tory MP for Braintree and a minister, was in Vinnytsia yesterday to hold a meeting with the mayor to discuss his mission to help evacuate women and children. Brooks Newmark has been on the show a few times. He's evacuated, or helped to evacuate anyway, thousands and thousands of women and children from Ukraine, and he's doing tremendous work. We've been lucky enough to have him in the studio on one of his rare trips back to the UK, but he was there when the missile actually hit the city, and he's with us now, I'm very pleased to say. Welcome back to the programme, Brooks. Great to have you on. First and foremost, what was it like when that missile struck?
Well, I was actually coming to Vinnytsia to meet with the local mayor, and I was early, so I stopped at a petrol station at a roundabout at the edge of town. A siren went off, and normally when sirens go off, you think, because they go off the whole time, you don't think anything's happening. But the next thing that I noticed, there was this huge plume of black smoke from the centre of the city. And so I knew something had happened. I didn't know what, but I feared at the time, because it was right in the centre of the city, that probably several people had been killed and even more wounded. And in fact, that's what had happened. There were 3 children killed, and I think a total of 26 people killed, and I think so far 75 people injured.
Yeah, no, indeed. And, I mean, it's the latest in a long line of atrocities, really. Where you're there right now, what's the resolve of the people like? So I believe, are you in Odessa at the minute, is that right? You're in Odessa,
yes.
You're in Odessa, right. Well, I actually had Alexei Goncharenko in the studio with me yesterday, who's been a mayor of Odessa and stuff in the past. So,
he's a local MP. I know him now. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But he's got massive concerns. Is the resolve of the people in places like Odessa still strong? Do they want to send the Russians packing, or have they had enough now?
They more than want to send them packing. I think the reality is that think about Vinnytsia. Vinnytsia, there's nothing military anywhere near Vinnytsia. It's in the middle of the country. So it was purely an attack on civilians and civilian sites. These are war crimes. Daily, we see Russian war crimes. And what happened in Vinnytsia yesterday is a typical example of that. I'm actually down here because I'm setting up a hub. I've got 6 hubs across Ukraine at the moment, but an anticipation of what is going on, particularly in the south here in Mykolaiv and Odessa, I'm here to set up 2 more hubs in case the Russians start to attack Odessa. They're already attacking Mykolaiv. There were 10 missiles this morning at 5 a.m. in Mykolaiv, which is the next door big city from where I am. And so we have to be prepared. And part of what I'm doing is being organised, anticipating where there will be a demand for people who want to get away from the war zone.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm going to talk to you in a second about exactly what it is that you're doing. You're doing tremendous work. But can I just ask you a broader question, which is, you say that we're seeing war crimes every day from Vladimir Putin's Russia, and it appears that we are. But actually, is this a lesson, which is that if you arm yourself to the teeth with nukes and you play the strongman for years, you can get away with anything, can't you?
Yes, you're absolutely right. So there was an agreement in 1994 called the Budapest Agreement, in which the USA, the UK agreed with Ukraine to protect their sovereignty if they gave up their nuclear weapons. The lesson now to any country that either has nuclear arms or wants nuclear arms is the only way to stop somebody invading you and attacking you is to have nuclear weapons.
Yeah. Now let's move away from that, Brooks. I just want to say, so do you just talk to me a little bit about your organisation or what you're doing? If can people donate to you? What can happen?
Yeah, no, I need to get better organised for that. Basically, I've been raising money from friends of mine. So I've raised about $375,000.
You got. So I tell you what, can I meet your friends, mate? Because I could do with some of that. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah. So I need to set things up. You're right to try and get more people to donate. But basically, there are two things I'm doing now. The first thing is moving women and children away from the war zone. But in the past few weeks, there have been more and more, because of these attacks on civilians, a number of amputees. So 2 days ago, I went to the Polish border to an airfield called Gettr, and there we've been moving amputees. We've moved about 165 amputees from Ukraine to an airfield in Poland, where they're then evacuated to a hospital in Germany. Germany is dealing with trauma victims in a way that the Ukrainians can't. So I'm not only moving women and children away from safety, but now I'm dealing with amputees. And I have to say, almost all the amputees I saw 2 days ago were women who had got caught by either landmines or cluster bombs that have been dropped on their towns and villages.
Just quickly, sorry. Brooks, very quickly, sorry, because we're going to have to go to the bulletin soon, but very quickly, you mentioned the word the landmines there. Who's laid those landmines?
So mainly the Russians. So when the Russians move away from somewhere, they then lay all these landmines as traps to injure the civilians. That's what they've been doing.
OK, Brooks, thank you very, very much. Great to see you again. Take care, mate. I wish you all the best. You're in a very dangerous part of the world, and all the best. Brooks Newmark there. Of course, former Conservative MP who's been doing his best trying to evacuate as many people as possible. Well, look, after the break, the US Congress has just voted to make it easier for defence officials to talk about UFOs. That's right, new UFO laws just dropped. Will we be finding out more secrets? I'll be speaking to a UFO enthusiast and former Liberal Democrat MP. I wonder who that could be. So I better open. But before that, this morning's news.
It's 11:33. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. We start with breaking news. It's understood British aid worker Paul Urey has died while being held in the Russian-occupied region of eastern Ukraine. The 45-year-old was captured in late April and was charged with so-called mercenary activities by separatists in the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. The report hasn't yet been independently verified, but has been reported by the Russian news agency TASS. And we'll bring you more on that as it develops. The Met Office has issued a red extreme heat warning for parts of England on Monday and Tuesday. The highest alert means there's a danger to life amid soaring temperatures. That as the NHS are facing a surge in hospital admissions during the heatwave. Tuesday is expected to be the hottest day, with temperatures likely to top the UK record of 38.7 degrees. The remaining 5 candidates will go head-to-head tonight, in the first of 3 live televised debates. Ella Braverman has given her support to Liz Truss as the next Tory leader after being knocked out of the leadership race yesterday. The Attorney-General says the Foreign Secretary is the candidate to unleash the opportunities of Brexit. Former Chancellor Rishi Sunak won the most votes, with Trade Minister Penny Mordaunt coming in second. Another 2 rail strikes are now taking place next month. RMT members at Network Rail and 14 train operators say they'll walk out on August the 18th and 20th in a dispute over jobs, pay and conditions. It's after RMT and ASLEF members announced they'll be striking on the 27th and 30th of this month. In Sri Lanka, clashes between protesters and police have resumed as demonstrators call for the resignation of interim President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The Prime Minister is currently serving as acting president and says he'll take immediate steps to establish the rule of law and peace in the country. It comes after former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled to Singapore this week amid unrest caused by an economic crisis. And Ivanka Trump says she's heartbroken following the death of her mother, Ivana Trump. The businesswoman described her mother as brilliant, charming, passionate and wickedly funny. Former President Donald Trump confirmed his ex-wife died in her New York apartment, aged 73. TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy $1.183 US and 1.178 euros. The price of gold currently stands at £1,439.28 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for physical investment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there. Right, morning everybody. It is 11:39 now. This is me, Patrick Christie's, here on GB News. We're live on your TV, radio and online, of course, this morning. As you will have heard in the news bulletins just now, we've had news that British volunteer Paul Ury, who was captured by Russian forces in Ukraine, has reportedly died in custody. Well, joining us now to give us more information on this breaking story is our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, thank you very much for joining us. I mean, this is big news, isn't it? What information can you tell us?
Yeah, I mean, really terrible news if confirmed. The Russian news agency TASS are reporting, quoting a local official in the self-styled People's Republic of Donetsk, saying that Paul Ury died at the weekend, that he died, according to the news agency quoting this official, of illness and stress, whatever that means. We know that from his family, he was a type 1 diabetic, had required regular insulin shots. So, yeah, I mean, very, very concerning news, absolutely horrific if true. He was captured at a road checkpoint near the city of Zaporizhia with another British aid worker, Dylan Healy, on the 25th of April. They had, according to a local charity, been heading out to rescue a mother and 2 children from that war-ravaged area to take them to safety when they were stopped at a checkpoint and then taken into custody, accused of being spies. They were paraded on television. It was broadcast all over Russia. Paul Ury in handcuffs, speaking really as though he was speaking under duress, talking about the British media lying about the extent of the refugee crisis and the fact that a bridge that had been damaged looked to have been damaged by an explosion from underneath rather than Russian missiles. So a great deal of suspicion, I think, that what he was saying was he was being forced to parrot that for the cameras. He will not have been kept in anything close to ideal conditions. We know that. And if he's had underlying health conditions, then clearly it's a worry. Now, according to the news agency TASS, in their reporting and quoting this People's Republic of Donetsk official, a named official, she was apparently saying that the British government, they had reached out to the British government with a view to trying to enact some kind of prisoner swap, that the British government didn't engage with them. Also claimed that the Red Cross hadn't engaged with them in terms of trying to get medication to this man. I don't know what level of truth, if any, there is to any of those claims. It is completely hard to tell, but very concerning reports. As I say, it's coming from the official state news agency TASS, who are quoting this named official in this breakaway Russian Republic.
I mean, will this realistically, right, obviously this is tragic news, OK, and clearly our hearts go out to the family of this particular chap, undoubtedly, but will this have any kind of bearing whatsoever on our reaction to what's going on in Ukraine? I mean, we've kind of, Putin's invaded an entire country, hasn't he? You know, the idea that a British citizen wrongly, we'll have to see the specifics of this, of course, was died in their custody. I mean, it's not going to ramp anything up, really?
Well, we'll have to wait and see what the British response will be to this. It will be very concerning to ministers here if this is true, because there are a number of British citizens who have been detained by Russian authorities and separatist groups fighting on behalf of Russia in Ukraine as well, and a great deal of concern about their safety going forward. You're right to say that the British government has already condemned the actions of Russia. It's imposed an unprecedented level of sanctions onto Russia. So we await to see what any response will be from the British government. We've got calls into the Foreign Office. As yet, they haven't come back with any kind of comment on these reports coming out from the Russian news agency TASS.
But obviously, as and when they do, you will be bringing us bang up to date, Mark. Thank you very, very much. Mark White there, of course, our home and security editor. And yes, very, very concerning stuff, of course. It's a real shame. But let's just move on from that now and something, rather different, frankly. The women's Euros are well underway. That's right, our Lionesses are doing this country proud, OK? They're doing really, really well, actually. They thumped Norway 8-0, which is nice for a start, but there we go. But, of course, it's brilliant to see more women in sport, especially as they're setting a great example to young women across the world. And, frankly, you know what? As a red-blooded male, it doesn't bring me any massive joy to say this, but you know what? I think we have to face facts here. If anyone's going to bring it home, it might be the women, all right? So there we go. Someone else who thinks that this as well is singer Ella Henderson, who is inspired by the players and the example they're setting as well for young women. Ella, thank you very, very much. But Ella herself, you can see there, I believe, Ella herself is actually an inspiration. She started, obviously, on X Factor, and her debut album, Chapter 1, reached #1 in the UK charts as well. The album spawned the chart-topping single Ghost, as well as chart-topping singles Glow, Glitterball and Let's Go Home Together, to name just a few. Just a few absolute classics. Ella, great to have you on the show. She joins me now. Ella, how are you? I must say, this is really surreal, actually. I remember watching on X Factor.
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing? You all right?
I'm all right. Thanks for coming on. So, there's a lot to get stuck into here. So talk to me a bit about the Euros. Why is singer, performer Ella Henderson, why do you care so much about the Euros? What's going on?
Well, do you know what? I was there from the very beginning of this because I actually had the opportunity to perform for the original draw for the Euros back in October. So to be a part of that from the start. And then, again, I was invited back to perform the national anthem for the FA Cup final, for the Women's Cup final at Wembley. And that was my first taste of being at a game of women's football. And the atmosphere was just incredible. The crowd was electric. And, you know, the way they played was amazing. And I just think there's something really inspiring about it. You know, I'm 26 years old. I have a career in music. And all the time I have a lot of younger fans and a lot of the younger generation looking up to me as a role model. And there's a level of responsibility that comes with that. And, you know, I definitely always spur on my fans to dream big and, you know, to never, you know, shut down any kind of like goal of theirs. And I think for the younger generation to see that there now is a future in women's football, and for the younger girls especially to see that, I just think it's really inspiring. I don't think the women on the pitch right now know exactly, the weight that they're carrying right now, and I guess like the light that they're shining for us all. And I think it's really cool. They're playing really well, and it's just, I think it's a really, really encouraging and exciting time to be seeing it, because it's something that didn't exist a few years back.
No, it didn't, and that's a really good point, Ella. So as far as I'm aware, I haven't got any children, but one day I hope that maybe I will. And I think back in the day, I used to think it was, and this is something I don't mind admitting on national television, because it was an unconscious thing. It was a genuinely unconscious thing. I thought, well, if I have a son, I'd like to teach you football and cricket or rugby or whatever. If I have a daughter, then something else. But it never really... And I realise now that that's a really stupid way to think, because of the work that's been done now in women's sport, right? You can take your daughter for a kickabout as well if you really want to, can't you? There's no issue with that. And there has been a big change, Ella, hasn't there? Because, like I said, I don't mind admitting that, because I'll hold my hands up and say that, like I said, it was an unconscious thing. But it was just... There's been a change in the psychology of our society, I think, hasn't there, when it comes to women's sport?
Absolutely. I don't think it matters what gender you are. I think we've got to remember that a sport, especially a sport like football, is one of the most universal sports. And, that's probably where I connect to it so much, and want to be an ally for this, because music is the same. Music is just as universal, and anyone can listen to a song and connect to it in an emotional way, and in whatever way, shape, or form they want. And anyone can get a ball and kick it around on the ground and play football. Doesn't matter where you come from, how you was brought up and what gender you are. So I think it's really, really beautiful to see. And, I even have a young niece she's just turned 8 years old. She's a huge football fan. On every weekend when I go back to Lincolnshire and I see her, she's always in a football kit. So to introduce her to women's football and let her know that, it is actually a career path for women too, and for girls, I think that was something that really blew her mind, and she was really excited about. So just seeing that moving the needle for that, I think is really exciting. And I think it's not even necessarily, even though the girls are playing so well right now for us in the Euros, I think they don't realise how much they're setting the standard and the tone for what's to come in years to come for us in women's football.
There's been a story that's been going around for the vast majority of this week now, which is about the kit. I'm sure you've seen it. Obviously, it's an all-white kit. A story as well about the Wimbledon's all-white female dress code as well, for example. Now, for reasons that I'm sure people can think about for themselves, we don't need to delve into that now. Some people are saying maybe they should change the colour of the shorts, for example, maybe to a blue or something less, well, frankly, white, right? And there's been a bit of resistance to that. Do you think that's a bit disrespectful? Should we just do it? I mean, what's the harm in just changing the colour of the kit to accommodate for certain natural processes,
I had no idea about this.
Oh, right.
I'm completely oblivious and unaware. But, I mean... My advice would be to whatever colour you want to wear. I mean, as long as they're in a team kit, I mean, that's
it doesn't
all
matter.
that should really matter. Really.
Absolutely. Can I just ask? Can I move it on to you now, please? Because I'm absolutely fascinated. You had an incredible career. It must have taken a huge amount of bravery to go on the X Factor, to put yourself out there, and to be kind of propelled really from, relative anonymity, right, to being obviously a household name. Can I ask what that was like? How did you deal with that pressure?
You know what? It is mad to say that it was 10 years ago that I was on a show like X Factor, and it has gone definitely so fast. And I think at the age of 16, having that much level of success and fame with the first single and into the first album, it was incredible. But, like any career and any, I guess, 10 years of somebody's lifespan, you definitely have your ups and downs. And for me, I'm just really thankful and grateful that I'm still here doing music, and I love it and I enjoy it. And I think I feel a lot more comfortable in my own skin now in my 20s, my mid-20s, and I'm at a place where I'm enjoying writing, collaborating with other artists, and I guess just constantly evolving and growing and learning from others. And I'm especially excited the fact that live music is finally back. Definitely a busy season for me for the festivals, and I've got my own tour coming up in October, which I'm very excited about, because it's been a long time since I've done my own tour. So there's lots of things exciting in the pipeline that are lined up ahead for me. So yeah, this year has been a wild one so far, and it's going very fast.
No, exactly, but also you're very good at what you do, and that's important. That's important to say. You were clearly absolutely born for it. So what have you got coming up then? You've got a tour coming up, have you? Would just give us some locations, dates, something like that, or festivals?
Yes, yeah. So I've got a gig this weekend at South Tyneside Festival. I'm headlining. I've got a lot of the Pride gigs this year for festival season, and then coming into the autumn time. So my tour kicks off in October, and tickets are on sale now. So make sure you grab a ticket for the Euros, and you also grab a ticket for my tour.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I'm mega excited for that. They're going to be really intimate shows scattered all over the UK. And there's many dates. It's over the course of 2 weeks. But what I love about it is the fact that they're going to be quite intimate, and I'm going to be up and close with my fans, and they're going to be longer sets, longer shows. And it's kind of this whole side of my set now, which is, there's the whole dance and up-tempo vibe, but then there's still me at the piano singing my intimate stuff. So there's a little bit for everyone.
just quickly, a couple of things. Do you get nervous when you go on stage or not?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely I always have an element of nerves. I think that's really healthy and good to have that. But then as soon as I walk out, it just completely goes.
You're away. Yeah.
I don't know where it goes, but it does.
No, look, absolutely, I can get what you're saying. And just very lastly, whereabouts are you from?
So I'm originally from Lincolnshire, from a small village called Tettney.
I was trying to place the accent. No, I was trying to place the accent. I couldn't quite picture that. That was it. But Ella, look, thank you so much. And you know what? The next time that one of your songs comes on the radio, I can actually go now. Oh, I've spoken to her. There you go. So Ella Henderson, thank you very, very much. And good luck with your tours. Good luck with everything. You'll absolutely smash it as you always do. So great stuff. Thank you so much. Right now, in July 1947, in New Mexico, the United States Air Force sent out a historic press release saying that they'd recovered a flying disc from a nearby farm. Yeah, this incident would fuel speculation about the existence of extraterrestrial beings, or, in simpler terms, little green men in flying saucers. Well, while there's no, obviously, need to reopen the X-Files and call in Mulder and Scully just yet, the US Congress has just voted to make it easier for defence officials to talk about UFOs without fear of being constrained by NDAs and all this kind of stuff. So while lawmakers say that the purpose of the legislation is to promote transparency about defence technology, I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to talk about UFOs and whether the truth, the little green men or anything else, is indeed out there. I'm delighted now to be joined by UFO enthusiast, someone called Space Cadet, but not me, crucially, and former Liberal Democrat MP, friend of the channel. It's Lembit Opik. Lembit, thank you very much, my good man. What a background that... Oh, here he is. Here he is. He's doing, if you're listening on radio, he's doing the kind of the Spock hands. There we go. Lembit, have we been visited by UFOs?
Probably not. But there's no doubt they're out there. There's no doubt they're out there. We're talking about a universe that is so big. It's so absolutely enormous. It's ridiculous to think that we are the only sentient life in the universe. What a waste of a universe. UFOs keep crashing on the Earth. Let me ask you this question. If you travelled 100 million light years to get to Earth, do you think you'd mess up the parking? I don't really believe that. But I think that we might be observed from a great distance, a little bit like Carl Sagan suggested in his film Contact.
No, look, absolutely. And do you think that we should be going looking for these aliens? Because there was a very weird thing that came out of China, not for the first time, Lembit, but there was a very weird thing that came out of China recently about they tweeted something like, we believe we might have actually had some contact, and then they deleted it immediately. Should we be going looking for this lot? Because it could end badly, couldn't it?
Yeah, that was a premature statement, actually. The most convincing piece of evidence was some decades ago when there was this incredibly credible burst, which has never been captured again. The Chinese probably going a bit too soon. The question you're asking is really interesting. Should we be looking for it? Yes. It is dangerous. We could die because of some weird disease. We could be eaten as a tasty snack on the way to somewhere else. But wouldn't you want to know if there are other sentient beings? And wouldn't you want to know if they're watching GB News?
Well,
the fact is, it's more...
I mean, that's been one of the criticisms levelled at us before, that there's a lot of extraterrestrials watching GB News, but I love them all, of course. But, Lemmy, I'm very sorry this is so short and sweet, my good man. I'm very sorry. I could talk to you all day about this. I'll have to get you back on, but we're going to have to call it a day, I'm afraid. Lembit Opik there. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Do you think the truth is out there, ladies and gentlemen? But that's it from us here at To The Point. Now, I will be back this evening, 7 till 9 p.m. for Friday Night Feast. Andrew Doyle covered it very well last week, rather too well for my liking, so I've vowed to knock it out the flipping park. 7 till 9 p.m, Friday Night Feast this evening. You're not going to be disappointed. But up next, it's The Briefing with the one and only Tom Harwood. Stay tuned.
Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. A fine, sunny but increasingly hot weekend will lead into some extreme heat for the early part of next week. The Met Office have issued warnings, extreme heat warnings for Sunday into Tuesday. High pressure is building in. That's creating the rising temperatures. But at the moment, at least, there's weather fronts sitting across parts of the north, bringing quite a lot of clouds and some outbreaks of rain across northwest England. A few showers coming into Scotland, the far northwest turning drier and brighter. A cloudier day for the Midlands and southern parts of England, but still quite a lot of sunshine along the south coast. And it's pretty warm out there. Temperatures, though, just getting into the mid to maybe high 20s. Fairly cool, though, with the cloudier weather further north and some showers around. However, temperatures are going to be ticking up both by day and by night as we go through the weekend. This evening, a few showers lingering over parts of northeast England before steadily fading away. For many, it'll turn into a dry night and a clear night. Actually, a reasonably comfortable night as well, with temperatures certainly rural parts of the north dipping down to single figures, but staying in the teens further south. However, the heat will start to build through the weekend. A fine summer's day for the vast majority tomorrow. Some rain likely across northern parts of Scotland, spreading across the Northern Isles. A few showers over the Highlands and the Western Isles.